Hello and welcome back to Hustle and Grace. I'm your host, Hilary Sutton, and the wonderful Rachel Day Hughes is back with me.
Hey, everybody. So good to be here.
I'm so excited that you're here, and I'm so excited about this topic today, Rachel.
Yes, me too. This is something we've been talking about and brainstorming for a long time, several months, I think.
Yes, it has been several months, and we have been talking about it at length. And I'm so excited to introduce it to our listeners and our YouTube viewers here today. So, we're unpacking the career motivation framework. Backstory: I've been passionate about the study of careers for a long time. If you've been around, you know that I've studied careers and work life balance for a while. And I think, to be honest, my interest in this topic really started when I was fresh out of college and was working in retail along with some other side hustles, doing performing on and off. And I was just so bored. Like when I was working those shifts doing retail, I had such a hard time. I remember writing lists on the back of receipt tape just to pass the time. I knew that I couldn't do that forever. I knew I needed to figure out a way out and onto something else. I dreamed about work that was flexible, autonomous, creative, involved collaboration. I knew what I valued. I just didn't know what was possible. So I think everybody has those values. Everybody has those career motivations that are unique to them beyond the role itself, beyond the job description. When it comes to work, what matters most to you? So today I want to introduce the 5 career motivations. And I think as you move toward creating a life and a career that you love, knowing what your primary motivation is key.
Yes, that's right, Hillary. And today we're going to explore all 5. We've created an assessment that you can take right on Hillary's website, hillarysutton.com, to find out what your motivation is and how that information can help you move toward a career and a life that you love. It's at hillarysutton.com/quiz. Okay, let's get into it.
I've observed over the last few years that everybody has motivations for staying at a job, moving to a new one, quitting, whatever it is. The job description that you read when you apply for a job really only tells part of the story, right? There are other reasons that you may end up really loving that job, really feeling loyal to that employer, or trying to get out of there as quickly as possible. And during this great resignation period that occurred on the back half of the pandemic, I saw trends both in the research that I was doing and even anecdotally, in conversation with friends and family, that certain aspects of work can make you want to stay or make you want to go. And those 5 motivations are flexibility, wealth, enjoyment, meaning, and prestige. Everyone has a dominant motivation, and knowing which one is yours will help you make better decisions in your career and ultimately lead to a more satisfying career path.
Yes, that's right. Okay, can we start with flexibility?
Let's do it.
You know, that one particularly perked my ears up because it's just become so key in this season of my life. And I know that's true for you too, right?
Absolutely. I mean, it's why I started the business that I have. And I think it's a big reason why you joined me working
Hmm.
with HSL Digital and the Hustle and Grace company. So whether
Definitely.
it's just for a season or it's forever, if your primary motivation is flexibility, you want a job that can work around your life. You would rather make your own schedule than have an impressive title or more money. Work is important, but you have other priorities and want a job that is malleable. I definitely resonate with this one. And I think for some people, the need for flexibility can even keep them out of the workforce. But the truth is, there are more flexible and remote jobs now than there ever have been.
I really appreciate that encouragement because it's not all or nothing, right? Just because someone has big priorities outside of work doesn't mean that they can't work at all. It's out there for you. Okay.
Absolutely. There's more potential now than there's ever been before.
Yes. And thank goodness. Thank goodness. Okay. What is the second one?
The second motivation is wealth. So some people are highly motivated by increasing income. Maybe it's someone who is an entrepreneur and they're kind of gamifying the system. What would it take for me to do a 10K month or a 20K month? or even a 50K month at some point. And before anyone bristles and just thinks like this is the greedy, Scrooge McDucks of the career motivation framework, it's not, because people who really value wealth also view it as a way to potentially change the trajectory of a generation, of their family, or it's a way for them to make big societal or systemic change. Maybe it's a way for them to really make a big difference in a cause. So because building wealth can have an incredible lasting impact on causes you care about, it can change the trajectory of the next generation of your family. Maybe one generation has to be incredibly frugal, or they can't afford basic necessities, but the next generation, maybe there's someone in that generation that really values wealth building, and they're able to pay for the next generation's college or the next one. Maybe they set up a trust fund. Like, I'm just kind of spitballing here, but it can really mean a huge shift. If your primary motivation is wealth, you value financial security, income, benefits, you want a job that provides that sense of security. You can pay your mortgage, save, and you don't have to worry about finances. Like, finances are no longer a worry.
Yes, I love that. And you've said it before, some people are called to do really meaningful work, and then other people are called to fund that work. And neither is more or less of a huge contribution to the work itself, right? And so that's just a great distinction to make. Okay, what is number 3?
So the third, so we talked about flexibility, we talked about wealth. The third one is enjoyment. And I almost named this one the work itself, but then I didn't think that was clear enough, because what it is not just the work itself, but how much you enjoy that work every day, how much you enjoy the way you're spending your days, at your desk or wherever it is that you're working. The bottom line is that you just want to spend time doing the work you love, whether it's creative or data centric or people focused, you love it. You don't necessarily care to work your way up the ladder with a different role or titles. It makes me think of the Top Gun franchise. Tom Cruise, can't miss it, right? The Tom Cruise franchise, the sequel that just came out, it's Top Gun Maverick. He's like pushing 60 and he's like, no, I don't want a promotion. Like, I want to fly these jets. That's what I want to do. Clearly his primary career motivation is enjoyment.
Did you know that my brother is one of those people? Like, no, not just like someone who values enjoyment, but he's like a fighter pilot.
That's awesome. Yeah. I wasn't sure what sort of plane or exactly what he did. So fill us all in.
Yeah, no, he's like infinitely cooler than everybody else in our family. He flies the B-1 for the Air Force, and so he's a fighter pilot. He just flew over like an NFL game and like just sent us a video. I was like, okay, no, he's, but he is actually that exact kind of person. He could have written that line. He's described to me that like, the military is kind of built for people who want to be a general, and he was like, in the world of fighter pilots, there's absolutely zero of those people, because we all just want to fly our planes and do flips in the air. That's him. He values it.
Have already achieved their big career goal, and they just
and
there's nothing wrong with that. Like, there's nothing wrong with not continually going for more and bigger and, whatever. Like, if you are in a role and in a job that you love, there's no reason that you have, like, you can put it on autopilot, shall we say?
Hey,
cruise control, right? Like,
right.
You don't have to, like, if you need a permission slip, like, listen up, here's your permission slip. You don't have to go on to bigger and better. And like, you can just keep enjoying the work that you're doing.
Right. Congratulations. You made it there.
Yes.
That's huge. Okay, so we talked about flexibility, wealth, enjoyment, and actually I want to say here, while we're at this point, I do think that for a lot of us, this point, this enjoyment piece is really the only thing that we consider whenever we are choosing what to major in college, right? We don't necessarily have conversations and explore the other aspects of a job that are really huge.
That's so true. Yeah. I mean, I remember when I was, first of all, what are we doing as a society telling like 18-year-olds to like pick a life path, right? Like,
Yes.
and also like take on hundreds of $1,000s in debt, but what that's
Ye-
a total aside. But really, when we're choosing a major as college students, we primarily only think about, for the most part, I know I can speak for myself. I just thought about what I liked the most. And what I liked was like singing and writing. So I picked, let me double major in music and journalism. But I didn't know what kind of flexibility or not those jobs would give me. I didn't know what salaries looked like. I didn't know how salaries compared for a job in communications or marketing versus being, a music teacher or a studio musician or whatever. And these are things that really matter, how those two careers compare in terms of flexibility, opportunities for growth. Um, you know, is it a job that can be done remotely or not? And so I think when you're exploring either either choosing a major in college or choosing to make a big career change or shift, or maybe you've been out of the workforce and you want to go back in and maybe you feel like you need to do some training or some professional development to get you ready for that. Do your research on not only what your days are going to look like in terms of the work itself, but also, is this something that can be done remotely? Is this something that's flexible? Like, what are the pie in the sky? What's a pie in the sky potential for salary or revenue? And what is realistic? Like, do your research. It's all out there for you to find out. There are
Yeah. This
salary
is the
reports and
age of
research.
information, right?
Totally. Like,
Yeah.
there's no reason not to find the information that you want. So I think that's actually like a good segue into the fourth motivation, which is meaning. So we talked about flexibility, wealth, enjoyment, and this one's meaning. So meaning is for those people who are most passionate about the difference they're making in the world through their work. They might be taking risks as a result. They might be earning less. They could be overextending themselves, whatever. But they really feel like no matter what sort of challenging byproducts there are, when it comes to the work itself, they feel great alignment in the work that they're doing and the difference they're making in the world. I mean, I think of, I grew up as a pastor's kid, and
Mm.
my dad was certainly motivated most by feeling like he had a positive impact on people's lives. And I actually see it in my husband as well. He's a
Mm.
therapist. This is definitely him. It's your work is a cause you believe in. It might even be the thing that you care most about in the world. You feel deep connection to the impact of your work. Like, it's not a job, it's not just a means to a paycheck, but it's really meaningful to you. And it might be a service role, it could be healthcare, could be a nonprofit, or maybe you're a thought leader and you really
Mm.
believe in the message that you're getting out there. It could be any of those things.
I love that. And these are the people that make the world go round, right? Thank you if that's you. If that is you, perhaps you might take a look at the sustainability of pouring out so much and consider doing this kind of work in seasons. I really have come to advocate for the idea of little sabbaticals after big projects, right? So when in an events-based organization or a service or a ministry or nonprofit, oftentimes workload can increase around predictable points around the calendar, like holidays or recertification processes or, new batches of students if you're in education or something like that. To avoid burnout as you're giving so much in these industries, try to take a high view look at your year and plan a long weekend after some really intense seasons.
That is great advice. That's great advice. And it reminds me of one of my first podcast guests was the Broadway performer slash author, Alexandra Silber. And she had this great metaphor about like one way that she takes care of herself. She's had a chronic illness. And one way that she takes care of herself is when she's in a performance or something, she views it like, she's pulling back the bow of like the bow and arrow. And there's a lot of tension and there's a lot of work and she's working hard and she's aiming. And then after the performance happens, she lets it go and it just soars and then she can relax. And she recognizes that when she is in a season of like head down work, whether it's a performance or writing, that she has to have that space after. And she like blocks off days on her calendar. And I think the world of that concept. And I think that embodies hustle and grace, right? Like,
yes,
there are times when like you're really going and you're really working, but you better make time for the restoration after that.
Come on.
Or
Yep.
there will be burnout. There will be not payoffs, but you will be paying dividends in some way, whether it's relationally or whatever.
Okay. Yep, that's so true.
So we're in the home stretch. We have talked about the first 4. The last one is prestige. So I think people that have other motivations can relate to this one as well. But let me just dive in. If prestige is your primary motivation, then you feel a burst of pride when you get to share with someone what you do or where you work. It's a good feeling. Work may include long hours. It might include lower pay than you want. You might be working at a storied institution, whereas if you have the same role in a company that people had never heard of, you might get paid a lot more, but you are getting paid in the sense that you're getting to be associated with this big job or this big organization. You might even feel like you're playing a part in history, something that's like bigger than just you. It can be really incredible. And, for me, it's funny. Some of the first jobs that I had that were the most entry level were at some big brands that people love. So I worked at Disney and I worked at Anthropologie, and both of those have a very rabid fan base. I think Disney probably takes the cake on like rabid fan bases, but let me tell you, with Anthropologie, I told people that I worked there. They would get so excited. They wanted to know what my discount was. And they wanted to tell me how much they love the smell of Anthropologie.
Oh, I am one of those people, like without a doubt. Anthropologie is like, has my number. I feel so seen every time I get their marketing. I'm like, this is for me.
Yes, 100%. People love it. And yeah, it was fun to be associated. It was definitely fun to be associated.
But then did you have to tell people like I do work there and my discount is 20% and it's great, but I don't love what I'm doing every day?
Well, that's, I think for me, like I had this moment. I mean, I can remember it. I worked at 3 different Anthropologies over the years, one in Nashville, one in Orlando, and then one in Soho in New York. And there was one night. So Anthro is one amazing thing about that company. And one thing that when people come into Anthropologie and it aesthetically feels so good, one thing that you don't notice, but is true, is that the sweaters are perfectly folded. The hangers are perfectly finger spaced. I'd have to finger space hangers till 2 a.m. in New York. And there was one night where I was like, I didn't see any certain end to me folding sweaters. I was like, when is this? It was kind of like, I don't know. I was having like a little bit of a crisis. Like,
wow.
Okay, I got to figure out a way to stop folding sweaters because it's just not for me long-term, because I knew that I loved creativity. I knew that I loved collaboration. I loved writing. I loved these other things.
Wow.
And so, yeah, that was like a come to Jesus moment for me, was folding sweaters at 2 a.m. Okay. Enough about me. Rachel, please share with us what your quiz results were. What is your career motivation? Your number one.
Okay. Are you ready? It really surprised me.
I'm ready.
My motivation was wealth, actually.
Wow.
Yeah. So
Tell us more.
I was really shocked about it because I definitely expected to get flexibility, and I talk about that a lot, and I do value it a lot. But so my result was wealth, and I actually had several weeks to kind of mull over that, and I realized how dead on true that was of me. So actually, looking back in the rear view of my life, my career, my decisions around life and career, I've realized that there have been many times that I've made really big decisions, or key, not taken big risks, or made really big investments. And behind each one of those things was actually a desire to establish a legacy of financial security for myself and for my family. I am not someone who feels the freedom, or I should say feels comfortable in the freedom to just go do whatever I want to do without it making a lot of financial sense for my family. And I'm not really sure where that comes from, but after having taken this assessment, I have just really realized how true that has been of me. So what were you? What was your result?
My result was enjoyment. And I think
Okay.
it could have also been flexibility.
Yeah.
But the older that I get, and as a parent now, like I can fully see wealth like coming into the picture too.
Hmm.
And I think it's interesting because I think that this is a great tool to add to your toolkit of personality assessments. Like I think of, for me, enjoyment being my primary career motivation makes perfect sense along with my personality. Like I'm an ENFP Myers-Briggs, I'm a 7 on the Enneagram. And of course, my primary motivation is enjoyment. As the 7, like we look for the fun in every possible aspect of life, right? And
Right.
I think, and so you add that to who you intrinsically are and what your career motivation is, and then also like your family of origin and what your experience was
Hmm.
there. And I think that for you, like of course it's wealth based on how you grew up, what your values are, and what your personality is. Like it all just correlates. So I would encourage people,
Yeah.
like, take the quiz, find out what your motivation is, see, like do a self check-in. What am I, how satisfied am I in my career, and what do I need to change to increase that satisfaction? And I think that this will help give you some information, and some tools to get there.
That's great. Okay. And so, just as a quick refresher, those 5 motivations are flexibility, wealth, enjoyment, meaning, and prestige. And you can take the quiz at hilarysutton.com, and you'll receive personalized career tips based on your motivation right in your email.
Yes. Yes. I'm very excited for people to take it. And hey, hit me up on Instagram, Hilary.Sutton. If you take it, I would love to hear what your results are and what you think about them. So Rachel, as always, thank you so much for being here. I'm so glad that you're here.
Thank you. It's been really, really great. Thanks, Hilary.